last video, I discussed how to connect a Sensel Morph to a ContinuuMini to basically turn that into a Continuum-like playing device. Well, I liked that so much, I went ahead and bought a second morph, and I've now connected two up to a hub with the ContinuuMini and a computer with the Haken editor in such a way that I can have a 49-note keyboard-like flat XYZ playing surface interface to my ContinuuMini, in effect turning this into a half-size Continuum, or a slim 46, which is equivalent to that. Once again, I set things up as MPE, and I won't talk so much about the innovators overlay in this video. We want to more talk about how to set up MPE in this kind of environment, because it has some intricacies that you need to worry about. You just don't set up two morphs identically for MPE and expect things to work out. They have to be configured to work as an MPE chain of devices, and we'll discuss what that means. So after I connect these to my hub and they're connected to my computer, I can bring up the editor, the Sensel editor, and I see that both of my morphs were identified, and I can click on one and see its configuration, and click on the other and see its configuration. I've set up two piano keyboards that are not identical. The first one I set up as my lower keyboard that starts at C2 and goes up to B3. Now the secondary note here I've set as B3 as well. On that one, you'll notice I turn Y off, because if I turn Y on and I have my preset that uses Y, I will go through that Y motion in this very small area, which is equivalent actually to the area of a ContinuuMini now, and depending upon where I hit that, I could get a timbre if Y is timbre based that is not desired. So I'll set this to the bass timbre, which is what I would get if I'm playing on the low part of the key. And then my other key above that will kick in and operate normally on Y. The second higher morph is set to go from C4 up to C6. And now I do use that last note because I'd like to get that octave above if I can. That's half my job. Now I have a playing surface that goes from C2 to C6, and I've also continued to use the octave down for down and the octave up for up on both of the morphs, so I can quickly press octave down on both and transpose everything down an octave, or press octave up on both and transpose everything up an octave. So very wide range I have available. Now how do I get this to work with an MPE device? There's some tricks there. If I go to my low morph, I need to make sure that I'm not going to overlap MPE channels that will create discontinuities, because the Continuum and ContinuuMini at least do not want to see two notes coming at the same time on the same MPE channel. That kind of violates what MPE is for. So let's say I have a preset that plays 6 voices and I want to equally distribute them. 3 voices will be played on one morph and 3 on the other. Well, that's pretty easy. I'll set channels 2 to 4 on the lower morph for 3 channels, and on the higher morph I'll set channels 5 to 7. And now when I'm playing, I should be able to get 3 voices on the bottom and 3 voices on the top. But if I try and play 4-voice polyphony on one morph, the topmost voice I'm playing will not sound. So that's something you have to be very cognizant of. A lot of ContinuuMini presets don't have a lot of polyphony. If you only have polyphony 3, which is the case in some of the string presets, now you have a real problem, because I'll only be able to set 2 voices on one morph and 1 voice on the other. And if I keep things defined the way they are here, with 3 voices on one morph and 3 voices on the other, the higher morph won't play anything at all for polyphony 3, because all those voices will be taken up by the first morph. It may well be better if you have a 3-voice polyphony preset to set your morphs up so that they all play on channel 1, that special channel 1 input mode. while you don't get some of the MPE facilities there, at least you'll be able to play 3 voices independently no matter where you are on these 2 fingerboards. So I have my 2 Sensel Morphs connected to the Haken editor and the ContinuuMini, and I show you a half-size continuum, 47 note continuum, as comparison to the 49 notes that I have available on the 2 Sensel Morphs. You can see there the aspect ratio, the difference in the key size on the Morphs versus the fingerboard note size on the half size. The width of the half size, as we said before, is virtually identical to that of the Morphs. The width of the ContinuuMini very much less. From the opening Chopin I was playing, you can hear I'm just starting to get used to playing this, but unlike a piano, of course, there's all kinds of note sliding and dynamic X, Y, and Z motions you can incorporate into your playing, just like on the Continuum, and to a little lesser extent on the ContinuuMini. Let's demonstrate one of the issues that you'll have if you set your MPE up incorrectly. I have a preset here I've been using for these demonstrations that is set to base 4+. That's expanded polyphony. So depending upon the number of DSP processing you have on your Continuum or ContinuuMini, you'll have 1 times that, which would be polyphony 4, 2 times that, which would be polyphony 8, which is the case we have here because the ContinuuMini is a 2x instrument. So base 4+ will give you polyphony 8. On the newer 6x continuums, base 4+ will give you 24 voice polyphony. So this is something that you have to be careful of on the newer slim and 6x models. You can set a polyphony that's greater than the number of voices that that preset can actually play, and in that case you might get reduced polyphony messages. You'll have to reduce the polyphony. We have 8 voices available to us in this preset that can be played. Let's go to our Sensel Morph configuration, and what I've done here is I set the lower morph on channels 2 to 5, so I can set them with polyphony 8 to have 4 voices played on this morph and 4 on this. For now we'll set the bottom channels 2 to 5, 4 voices. The top will set to 3 voices for now, channels 5 to 7. Now you'll notice I have an overlap of channel 5 here. That's the last channel that I'll play if I have 4 voices pressed on the morph, on the lower morph, and that will be the first channel played for the first note pressed on the upper one. If I only play 2 voices, I'm fine. But what if I press all 4 voices down here? And now let me bring in this voice, which will be on MPE channel 5. It's all messed up. So what I'm going to have to do is make sure my MPE channels between these 2 morphs do not overlap. I'll set this now, channels 6, 7, 8, and 9. And that will give me my full 8 voice polyphony. Up to 4 voices can be played on the bottom, up to 4 voices can be played up to top, and any combination thereof. We'll send that to my morph. We have to wait until it's accepted, and then I'll see, okay, it's set to channel 6 to 9 now. Now when I play 4 here, everything works out nicely. A few other things. This preset, as we said before, uses Y. Spectral balance is increased, so the complexity of that waveform is increased. Makes it sound more sawtoothy at the top. When you play quickly, sounds like a filter opening up and closing. Now on the ContinuuMini, I can get that same effect, but what if I want to play a melodic line? On the Morphs, I can play on the front end where things are more mellow. But if I try and do that on the ContinuuMini, two things happen. Number one, it's very difficult for me to play only at the bottom where I get that same mellow timbre. And the second thing is it's much more difficult to control an even volume on the ContinuuMini because of the way the plate presses down. They have a little lever here that can help you level that. But it takes a lot of practice, and even with practice, you're going to have some difficulty. Plus, you're going to get some discontinuity in that sound due to your being off on Y here, and so some notes will be a little more sawtoothy than others, very difficult to play just at the bottom here. And you can hear some notes come in very, very loud because it's difficult to maintain that even pressure balance on the ContinuuMini plate. But on the Morph, it's quite easy to get very, very quiet passages, almost as pianissimo as you can get, to loud and get consistent volume. So one big advantage of using these Morphs is that you have much better and even pressure response than on the ContinuuMini, unless you practice hours and hours on the ContinuuMini. And even then, probably you're going to be able to do things dynamically on the Morphs with greater precision than you can on the ContinuuMini. Now, when the Continuum is a different story, there it's much more pressure sensitive in a way that's similar to the Morphs. And I actually have a few more notes available to me on these Morphs than on the Continuum. But the advantage here is the widths of the notes are larger on the Continuums. But then if you're used to playing the piano, you'll probably be able to play this more reliably, at least at the beginning, than you will when you first get a Continuum. But there's no question, playing a Continuum is an experience like no other, and you really just have to feel it and play it to understand how incredible it is. But again, I think the Morphs are also incredible for what they do. So let's take another approach. Let's bring up the violin, viola, cello bass 2 preset. Now this has bass 4 with both expanded polyphony and it allows increased computation. The result is you're going to get polyphony 4 on the ContinuuMini. What will happen now if I play set 4 voices on the lower and 4 voices on the upper? There's my 4 on the lower, but I get nothing on the upper because I've already used up my polyphony. Well, what can we do? We have some choices here that might be difficult. I can set this so that I have 2 voices on the bottom and 2 voices on the top. That might be sensible, but then it might be limiting if you need to play 3 voices in one hand and only 1 in the other. Why it would be nice to have a much longer morph that is 1 instrument, but of course I realize that's probably not feasible. Well, let's see what happens. We can go in, we'll take my first morph, channels 2 and channels 3. That's all I can do. I'll send that. You have to wait until it's accepted and then it'll change. Now on my other morph, I will have channels 4 and channel 5. And I'll send that. Now I can only play 2 voices on this morph. But the other 2 are available on the other morph. At least that gives me a lot more options. I can simulate a cello pretty well that way. I'll have problems if I want to play triple or quadruple stops on the bottom or top morph. But other than that, this is probably doable. Now, some other presets might have even less polyphony available to you, and in that case, maybe those presets are not the best to use two morphs in MPE mode, because you will find you'll have limitations in your playing then. So this works really well, I think, for the most cases on Continuum presets that give you polyphony 4 and above. It also lets you overcome, as we said, a number of limitations of the ContinuuMini, and also could work very well with a Continuum as you learn to play it, because maybe you just get yourself a Continuum. A morph with that will allow you to maybe practice a little better. If you can play well on the smaller width keys of the morphs, that probably will translate well into helping you play better on your Continuum, to be honest.